Thank you, everybody, for joining us. We really appreciate you being here today. Before we get started, I want to do a little bit of technical assistance. If you see on your right, there is a box that says Go to Webinar Control Panel. In that, there is a section that says Questions. If you can click it so that the arrow goes down, it allows you to ask questions to the panel during the presentation. As a mechanism for technical assistance, what we'd like you to do right now is write your name, and if you're working at an agency, and what city or state you live in. But while we're waiting for you to do that, why don't we do some introductions? So Tara, why don't you start?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Tara Barnes-Darby, Director of Conferences at NMAC.
Good afternoon. I'm Allison McKeithen, Conferences Manager. Thanks for joining us.
Good afternoon. My name is Shantae Gray, Event and Registration Coordinator. Welcome to the webinar.
So Shantae, how many people have registered so far for this year's USCHA?
So far we have almost 1,800 people registered for the conference.
And that's in 3 days. So that is very amazing and wonderful. It is going to be a very large conference. We look forward to seeing everybody there. So Chip, who's joined us on the call?
So we have Dylan Brooks from Compass Community Center in Lake Worth, Florida. We have Shantae Dixon. We have Zoe Ponder, Health Promotion Specialist. We have Allison Heinrich at Miracle of Love in Orlando. Carl Baker from Desert AIDS Project in Palm Springs. Rob Pompa from Allentown, Pennsylvania. Randall Furrow from Phoenix. Aaron Dale from the University of Kansas Health System in Kansas City, Kansas. We have Brandy Velasquez from Portland, Oregon, PWN USA, and a lot of other people who are joining on.
Well, thank you all so much for joining us. While we're going to be doing a series of webinars because for most of us, attending a virtual conference is a new experience. And so what we want to do is get people comfortable with the different platforms and the different ideas. The purpose of this webinar will be threefold. Number one is I'm going to walk you through the content of the 2020 meeting. I'm then going to ask Tara to walk you through the platform so that you get a sense of what we're trying to do. And then the final section, we'll open it up for questions so that you can both tell us any thoughts you have about what you think would be important for this year's meeting or any questions that you have about what we're trying to achieve. Now, to be very candid with all of you, we've never done this kind of meeting before. So like many people, we are pivoting and moving as quickly as we can. We thought we would share our journey with you and be as transparent as possible when talking about virtual conferences so that we could all learn together. Because unfortunately, this may be the way that we're going to be learning for a while here. So thank you folks for joining us. Staff, anything else, or should I get started? Let me get started and I'll share my screen. Oh my God. I know that there's a way to do this, and of course I have no idea right now. How do I share my screen, Chip?
Go to the sharing box on the control panel.
Ah, thank you. There we go. So one of the things I want to talk about with everybody is how we're going to be doing something like this. So the dates of the virtual conference are October 19th through the 21st. Now, what's important to understand is that if you are not available at this time, the workshops will be put online so that you will be able to view them at a later time for up to 1 year. So even if you aren't available on those dates, you will still have access to the plenaries and the workshops. You will not have access to the exhibit hall. When we talk about this year's United States Conference on AIDS, obviously we want to talk about how COVID-19 has really shifted all of our work and changed the way we provide services, including conferences. And so what we want to do is look at how COVID-19 has impacted the provision of HIV prevention, care, treatment, and wraparound services. Over the last 2 weeks, we've also seen, major unrest in the country as we talk about Black Lives Matter and America's legacy of racism. So we've decided that we are going to lean into both COVID-19 and the intersection of HIV services, working in a community that is committed to Black Lives Matter. So it's going to be a really, hopefully, interesting and relevant pivot as we try to figure out how to do these virtual meetings. So what you should know is that we're doing in 2020 5 plenaries, 60 workshops, probably 20 institutes, and a virtual exhibit hall. Yes, we are being extraordinarily ambitious, and maybe we're biting off a little bit too much, but isn't that kind of what HIV work has always been? Kind of biting up a little bit more than you really can chew, because you want to get information out to people and you want to make sure that what you're doing matters and is helpful. And one of the new things that we're doing this year is we're doing a virtual HIV jobs fair. I don't know if you saw, but the unemployment figures came in this week, and there are 47 million Americans unemployed right now. In addition to that, many, many, many nonprofits, including HIV nonprofits, are hurting. They've been forced to furlough or let go of staff. And so we just felt like this was a really important time to bring together people who need jobs with the people who have jobs. And part of why I know we're going to be having jobs is that the HIV community is about to get access to over $300 million of new funding to end the epidemic. And that will mean thousands of new jobs and hopefully hundreds of agreements with community-based organizations. And so while we have the largesse of this appropriation, I just think it's important for us to make sure that we're helping people who are hurting right now. So this is the big thing. We decided that we are going to do a free conference. And let me be really candid about why we're free. Everyone is hurting right now. There are so many people unemployed. There are so many nonprofits that are hurting that it just felt like it would be really tone deaf to ask for people to pay for registration fees, particularly for people who are unemployed and looking for jobs. And so we pushed really hard to make this a free meeting. But let me tell you candidly how we did that. The only reason that we could do this free meeting is because our sponsors hung in and agreed to support a virtual meeting versus an in-person meeting. And so we are very thankful to all of the sponsors who have agreed to continue to support this meeting. For those of you who haven't registered, we would strongly encourage you to register as soon as possible. Within the first 4 days of making this, 3 days of making this announcement, we are already at 1,800 people. We are concerned about going too much above 4,000 just because we have to be concerned about the size, how many people the platform can simultaneously hold. So we want to talk. The focus of the meeting is obviously the focus of why we're meeting with you online right now and why we're trying to train about a new way of learning. COVID-19 has changed everything. It's changed the way we provide services. It's changed the way that we meet. It's changed the way that we train. And so we want to use USCHA as a vehicle to help people in the front lines understand what are and how should we be doing HIV prevention? What are and how should we be doing our efforts to end the epidemic? How do we make sure that we're still providing services for people over 50 living with HIV? How do we make sure that we're still providing services for the transgender community? So all of this is to say that we want to work with you, and hopefully we'll create a conference that will pivot to what your needs, your most pressing needs are. We've decided that this year's conference will return to a theme from 2017, and that's family reunion. We're calling it family reunion because it just seems like right now the world is upside down. And now more than ever, we need our family. Now, it's important to understand that NMAC defines family as more than the people who you're related to. You know, and to NMAC, family is the people you want to hug when you're in quarantine. Family are the people who you know will have your back during difficult times. Family is the HIV community and why we want to celebrate it. This year, there are going to be 5 plenary sessions. It's important to understand that because of our concerns about going live, the plenary sessions are going to be pre-recorded. We wanted to do that because we didn't want to have thousands of people standing online waiting for a plenary to happen and for there to be a glitch in terms of the live process. And so we are going to be pre-recording it. We want you to know this in advance. The 5 plenaries are the opening plenary is the plenary that NMAC is doing. It is going to be a family reunion looking at the intersection of COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, and HIV prevention, care, treatment, and wraparound services. The closing plenary is going to be a federal plenary where we're going to hear from our federal leaders to tell us what the next steps are in our efforts to end the epidemic. We are pleased to announce that Dr. Fauci has agreed to keynote this plenary and will be hopefully updating us on the latest around COVID-19 and what we should be knowing as we are reopening our workplaces. There will be 3 other plenaries, and all of them will be done by the sponsors who allowed us to do the free registrations. And so we're appreciative of their sponsorship. Gilead and ViiV have committed to 2 of the slots, and we're still working out who's going to take that 3rd slot. So this conference is only as good as the workshops that we're able to provide. This year, we are going to do 60 workshops. That means 15 simultaneous sessions over 4 workshop sessions. Like we talked about with the plenaries, workshops are going to be a mix of pre-recorded and live. The first 30 minutes that present the data will be pre-recorded sometime within the 45 days prior to the meeting. And then the final 30 minutes will be a live Q&A, we hope. You know, I will tell you, I'm not going to lie to you and pretend like I'm an expert at this. But then I also have to tell you, nobody's an expert at this. This is something that we're all learning and trying to figure out as quickly as possible. Just like all of you are trying to figure out how do you provide the services that you provide in this new environment. So the tracks for the 2020 meeting include race. We want to talk about Black Lives Matter. We want to talk about how the intersection and how the Black Lives Matter movement should impact the provision of our services. You know, what does white privilege mean? What does unconscious racial bias mean? What does systemic racism mean? We're then going to do a federal track. We've met with 6 federal partners who've each agreed to do 2 workshops each. We're then doing workshops on HIV prevention during COVID-19, HIV care and wraparound services during COVID-19, the next steps to ending the HIV epidemic, reaching communities hardest hit by HIV. This includes the transgender community, people over 50 living with HIV, and people of color, the gay men, Black women, just, you know, all the communities that are hardest hit by HIV. We're going to do something on HIV policy, something on community organizing, and then the final track is our Spanish language track. What we want, you know, we were supposed to be in Puerto Rico this year, and we are very, very sad that we couldn't be there. And so we felt it was important to do a Spanish language track. We will, in addition to the Spanish language track, have simultaneous translation for the plenary sessions in Spanish. However, we will not be able to make this a fully bilingual conference. And so we wanted you to know that in advance. In addition to the 60 workshops, we're also doing about 20 institutes. The biggest difference between institutes and workshops is the amount of time. Workshops are 60 minutes versus institutes that are going to be 90 minutes. And like the workshops, the first 45 minutes will be pre-recorded with the data presentation, and then the last 45 minutes will be live Q&A. Historically, NMAC has done a series of institutes on racial and ethnic communities, including African Americans, American Indians, Alaska Natives, the Latinx, as well as Pacific Islanders and Alaska and Native Hawaiians. In addition to those, we've also done the transgender community, gay men, people living with HIV. We've added a couple of new ones this year. The first one is on heterosexuals. We got a lot of pushback and lobbying from the heterosexuals who are attending USCHA, who were concerned that USCHA does not necessarily speak to all the issues that heterosexuals, particularly heterosexuals living with HIV, face. The other new track other new institute that we've added is on transgender men. While we've had many years of institutes on transgender women, transgender men came to us last year and said, it's time, you've got to have a place for us. And so we really want to do that. What we'll do at the end of all these presentations is we'll open it up to questions, and we'll be asking you what are the workshops and institutes that are particularly important to you, because this conference is only as valuable as its ability to speak to the needs of its participants. One of the last things I want to say is that NMAC remains committed to Puerto Rico. We have moved the meeting to October 10th through the 13th, 2022. We did that because 2021 is going to be in Washington, D.C. But I wanted particularly our Puerto Rico constituents to know that we remain committed to highlighting their experience and showcasing what is happening in Puerto Rico. So with that said, I'm going to turn this over to Tara so that she can talk about the format.
Thanks, Paul. All right, let's share my screen.
Tara, you need to turn your camera on.
Yeah, I want to make sure. Let's see. Hold on 1 second. Can you see my screen? You guys,
Yes.
can you see my screen? Okay.
Yes, you can see it.
Okay, great. All right. So sorry for the delay. It's the end of the day. So hopefully Paul's giving you an idea of what we're trying to capture virtually while still maintaining that aspect of the historical USCHA. So I'm going to walk you through what a mock-up of the virtual platform is going to look like. All right. So when you log into the system, you're going to enter this virtual lobby, and this will be customized to USCA's theme. We'll be building out the assets this summer. But basically, this is a landing page for everywhere you'd like to go. So for example, you'll be able to, everywhere you see like this, a label, it'll be clickable. For example, you go point in the exhibit hall, you'll be brought into that environment. For auditorium, right here, we'll probably have plenary sessions. You'll be brought into the ballroom. Breakout sessions, you'll be brought to the list of workshops. So it'll be a place where you can kind of get your bearings and go to all aspects of the conference platform. And during the live hours, we'll also have the info desk staffed in case there are any questions. So here's an example of the virtual exhibit hall. So you'll log into the exhibit hall and it'll open up, and for the most part, it'll open up to the space where the presenting sponsor, premier sponsors, and other sponsor levels where their booths will be. but you'll navigate by clicking on the left and right arrows. There'll also be a searchable box where you can type in the organizational name to jump directly to a booth. So here's the animation of an actual experience of how to engage with an exhibitor. So you'll go into the hall, you'll click on a booth, and you'll be able to see all of the different assets that that particular exhibitor has uploaded. For example, they may have videos, they'll have brochures, other documents, and there'll also be a way to engage. And that engagement is mainly through a chat function. So during the live exhibit hours, you'll be able to chat with the booth staff. And that's what that will look like. You can also set up an appointment to talk later, especially if during the live hours, there'll be a certain number of booth staff available at the booth. And for, you may stop by that booth and they may be chatting with someone else, so you'll be able to set up appointments later. You can also have group chats or one-on-one video chat. And we'll also have a virtual conference bag. We know that's an important part of the USCHA experience. This year it's not going to be tangible, but we will have one online. It'll be a place for you to gather all of the things that you've downloaded throughout the platform. For example, for those, you may have attended a couple of sessions and you downloaded the handouts, you would collect that in your conference bag. And being a registrant, everyone will have that. So you'll kind of download it, it'll be there in your conference bag, and once the conference is over, or at the end of the day, whenever you're ready to, you'll be able to download those files. All right, and as Paul said, we're also going to have a virtual jobs fair that we're very excited about. It will look similar to an exhibit booth, but the main purpose of it is definitely to create a space where people are matched, people who are looking for jobs and people who have announcements open. So the exhibitors will be able to post their announcements as well, and people who are looking will be able to also post their resumes. And there'll be an opportunity to chat with the various exhibitors who are at the jobs fair, as well as the opportunity to create an appointment to meet later or to have an interview. All right, on to plenary sessions. So this is a sample environment of what a virtual plenary session ballroom is going to look like. So as Paul mentioned, the plenary sessions are going to be pre-recorded. So once it's time for it to start, you will click on the middle screen. There'll be an arrow there, and the screen will fill, and the actual program will start. Likewise, there we have simulive breakouts, and that's the term for the combination of both pre-recorded and live content. This is going to be the format for the workshops in the institutes. So for the workshops, it's going to be 60 minutes, 30 minutes of pre-recorded information, and 30 minutes of live Q&A with the presenters as well as the people who've attended the sessions that have questions. So here's an example of another conference's virtual lobby and how they've accessed the workshop sessions. They click on the auditorium and then they'll bring up a list of workshops that are available to play. And they're both on demand and simulive. Simulive meaning that the Q&A is about to start for those particular sessions. And just to let you know, the content for the conference, the workshops and plenary sessions are going to be online for a year. And as always, we try to inject some fun into the conference. We normally have through our mobile conference app some gamification in terms of ways to earn points to get to the top of the leaderboard and eventually earn prizes. So we'll have different things available, which we'll share throughout the summer. But one of the things that we're going to have is a scavenger hunt. And basically what that means is that we'll place items anywhere throughout the platform. For example, you see the aisle right here in the exhibit hall. You know, if you find that, you'll get some points, but we'll give a little more information so you'll know what to look for. And, you know, we'll have fun in terms of that, but we know also that engagement and networking is an important part of USCHA. We're going to do that by still having our lounges, our persons living with HIV, our trans, as well as our youth lounges. Someone in the last call actually recommended an HIV 50+ lounge, so we're thinking about adding that as well. And that'll be a good source of kind of face-to-face engagement and networking. We'll most likely do that through Zoom Hangouts. We'll have a networking reception as well as social media integration. All right, well, that concludes my presentation. And I'm going to open it up for Q&A.
Thank you all. So what I would like you to all do now is go to the question section of the box and start writing in your questions that you may have for us about the meeting. But while we're doing that, Allison, could you explain the call for abstract process?
Absolutely. So our call for abstracts are currently open. So if you go to uscha.life and click on our abstracts tab, you're able to go in and see the submit an abstract button. That'll take you into our system so you can go ahead and apply for an abstract. There are also the new track listings there with the descriptions. And we have previous webinars that we did telling people on how to submit an abstract. So you want to definitely check those pages out and submit an abstract there. Our deadline is July 17th, so you still have some time. If you previously submitted an abstract, now is the time to go back in as well and resubmit under one of our new tracks if it applies. And if not, go ahead and write up a new topic. We'd love to see what you have and what you're interested in presenting. So please submit an abstract.
Great. One of the things that I forgot to do when we did introductions is ask Chip to post the email addresses for conference staff so that if you have any questions, I really strongly encourage you to email them and not me, and to talk to them about anything that you need information on that will help you make the conference a better experience for you. So with that said, Chip, let's look at, oh, you're back, Shantae, question. Tell us a little bit about what happens if you've already paid your registration fee.
Sure, thanks, Paul. So if you already paid your registration fee for USCHA Puerto Rico, please be advised, I sent an email out this morning. You can get a refund, or you can apply your funds until 2021, Washington, D.C., or you can donate your funds. So please check for your email. If you did not get it, please shoot me an email at sgray@nmac.org, and I will make sure I handle that for you. Thank you.
Thank you. You know, we smile, but like everybody, NMAC is hurting, and so your donations would be greatly appreciated. So Chip, what questions do we have?
We have a couple of questions right now. First one is, will CEUs be offered?
Tara.
Yes.
Oh.
I'll answer. Yes. We will offer CEUs. It's okay. We have 3 types that we're currently applying for. We're offering general CEUs through George Mason University. We're offering community health education specialist CEUs through NCHEC. And we're also going to offer social worker CEUs from NASW. And as we get more information and approved on that, on how many hours we're approved for, we'll post that on our USCHA.life website.
Great. Next question.
Next question is wondering about the possibility of a track for self-care or adding something each track that speaks to self-care.
Self-care is going to be absolutely critical, both self-care for people living with HIV as well as self-care for staff. And so I will ask staff to make sure we figure out how to incorporate that, because I think like all of us, particularly one of the things that we want to talk about is kind of the mental health issues of what this isolation has created, because we already knew before that, particularly for people living with HIV, that isolation can lead to depression. And for all of us who have been experiencing the last couple of months alone, you know, it can feel at times daunting and unending. And so we went to and had a meeting with SAMHSA and asked them to pull together their workshops specifically on addressing mental health issues, because we feel like that's a real critical thing at this time. Next question.
Are there any sessions addressing HIV, aging, and women?
There will definitely be many sessions addressing HIV. There will also be many sessions addressing HIV and women. In terms of HIV aging and women, I am not as sure. And so what I would request is that, you know, part of what makes this conference great is that it comes from community. You know, the presenters are community. And so if this is something that's of interest to you, submit an abstract, because I absolutely get the value of it. Tara, I didn't mean to interrupt you though, but please go ahead.
No, I was just going to basically say what you said, that we're definitely going to have an HIV and aging track. And what we'll do is we'll pass this along to Moises. He's going to be leading the aging group of sessions, and we'll put this down as possibly something that needs to be curated.
Next question.
Okay, next question. Will there be a track or something on COVID and HIV?
Yeah, I mean, that is going to be woven into everything. That this whole conference is about, not just about providing prevention services, but providing prevention services during COVID-19. It's not going to be just about how to, you know, it's going to be about how do we reopen our organizations. A lot of us, you know, are still very concerned about the safety of our staffs and the safety of our clients. And we know that there needs to be some provision of services. And so how we're going to do all that is kind of the major thrust of this meeting. Next question, Chip.
Okay, this is a comment. Hello, my name is Brianna Benjamin. I was an NMAC Youth Initiative Scholar last year. I don't have a question. However, I just want to commend you all on continuously working hard even through this pandemic to ensure that we still have an amazing experience in this year's virtual conference.
Thank you.
Right.
Thank you.
We love our delegates. Yay! No, we really do. You know, it's that double-edged sword where we've been working with so many young people and they've been getting jobs in the movement. We've seen them grow up and become adults, and it's just been an amazing, amazing thing. So, you know, we will be doing a youth lounge. We will be doing lots of youth programming. And thank you so much for the nice shout out. We'll send you the check later. So anyway, next question.
It would be interesting to see a session that explores the intersection of HIV modernization, decriminalization efforts, and the criminalization efforts around COVID-19.
Yeah, no, we believe that the criminalization issue is critical. It will be part of the HIV policy track. And this is what I want to say to you. If you want to see a workshop on something, submit it. However, let's suppose we don't have it. One of the things that NMAC does do is also we look and try to identify gaps. And so if there are gaps, we try to curate sessions to address them. However, oftentimes we can miss it. And so the best way to ensure that that workshop happens is to submit an abstract. Next question.
Next question is also a comment. Thank you for offering this virtual conference. Sounds like you have some awesome things planned. While an in-person conference is preferred, I have no doubt that NMAC will knock it out of the park with a virtual one.
Well, thank you. So let me just say something, because we're a little giddy. This is our third webinar that we've done today. And so hearing nice things really makes our day. And we really appreciate that, because what you should know is that, the community and NMAC, we're the same thing. And we want good things for everybody. And so we're going to really work our butts off. But we've not done this before, so I don't want to lie to you and pretend like this is going to be the best thing. But I think it will be an interesting learning journey. And I invite you to go on this journey, because I think, unfortunately, because of COVID-19, we're having to pivot how we learn everything. We're having to pivot how we provide services. We're having to pivot about how we work or don't work together. And so this is all part of that big experiment. Next question.
Another comment. Seems like people want to comment instead of ask questions this afternoon, so which is fine.
Let's
this is from
talk.
Robert. This is from Robert Pompa, and he says, "I love NMAC, always the best responsive PL/HIV-centered conference of all."
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Robert.
See you next week. Thank you so much for that. We really do. Sometimes it's really hard to tell. And so we appreciate these moments just to get the feedback, and thank you so much for your kind words. Next question.
No further questions at the moment. If anybody wants to submit questions, please do, but we don't have any further at the moment.
Good. So let me just do a couple of wrap-up comments, and then we'll see if there are any more questions. The first wrap-up comment is that we don't believe that people can sit in front of their computer screens for 8 hours a day. And so let me talk to you a little bit about the timing of the meeting. As you know, we have multiple time zones when you talk about a national meeting. And so the USCHA will be going from noon East Coast time, which is 9:00 a.m. West Coast time, to 6 p.m. East Coast time, or 3:00 Pacific time. We're doing that to accommodate the various time zones so that we can get the maximum amount of participation. But if you are unable to participate during any of those times, please know that the information will be online for you to get at a later date. Tara, what else do we want to make sure we let everybody know?
Well, we want to let everyone know about next week's abstract webinar, July 2nd. Allison will be leading that. So if you want more information about the conference tracks and the topics that we're looking for and how to submit an abstract, please tune in. Also wanted to address those that have previously registered for the conference, and if you've reserved the hotel room, the Caribe Hilton and the Sheraton will be canceling your rooms. No need to contact them. They will be canceling and refunding every deposit.
We know that these are hard times for everybody, and we part of why we're free is because we want to make sure during these hard times with so many people unemployed that everybody has access to this critical information. But the information only works if we get good abstracts. And so part of the plea you're also hearing from us is think about submitting an abstract. I know that it can be tough and daunting, but it really is the lifeblood of the meeting. Anything else, Allison?
Nothing else. If you do have questions around track topics, submission issues, anything, email me, call me. I'm available to assist in any way I can. I'm really just interested in making sure that all of you have your voices heard and your abstracts are submitted.
And finally, Shantae, anything?
No last minute, but if any questions about registration or registration refund, please give me a call, or any general questions, I'm available to answer.
And let me say to all of you, part of why I love being on these panels with these three amazing women is that each time I get to say to them, thank you. They are really the heart and soul of the conference. I'm just the pretty front person. And they are the people who get to do all the work and who have to, do all of the real hard work. And it is just a privilege and an honor to be able to work with them. And as you can probably imagine, the pivot to a virtual meeting had to happen really fast, and we had to be a little bit crazy, but we are, I think it's going to be a great meeting. I think it's going to be a great meeting. Chip, are there any final questions?
Yes, we've had a couple more. Can abstracts be submitted for Spanish workshops?
Yes.
Yes.
And just speaking of the Spanish workshops, just so that you know, this week there is a survey going out
Olay Retinol 24 faced the competition, and we broke through. Olay's Retinol 24 complex hydrates better than the $100 Retinol cream. Visibly smoother.
We hear it.
Boy, we were bombed. That means we're important. But anyway, yes, there is a survey that's going out right now to all of the Spanish-speaking, Spanish-serving organizations to ask them for recommendations about what they want to see in this track. And yes, you will be able to submit your abstracts in Spanish.
And we have one more question here. A question about the 2021 conference. That I heard you mention that 2021's conference will be in DC, but online it only mentions the 2022 conference in Puerto Rico. We ensure that information for next year's conference is also available online.
We will make sure
that
we post that online, and hopefully, it's time for never mind. Anyway, all of which is to say, we look forward to seeing everybody. Thank you so much for taking part this afternoon and meeting with us. We look forward to seeing you at future webinars, and we look forward to seeing you online in October. Bye, everybody.
Bye.